You've been taught to confront toxicity. That reflex will destroy you. Real predators don't argue. They study your defense, then dismantle you slowly. The ones who smile widest are already inside your perimeter. You've been trained to spot the wrong enemy. Every article you've read, every therapist you've consulted, every self-help video you've consumed has conditioned you to identify toxicity through volume. The yelling, the gaslighting, the love bombing followed by devaluation. These are the symptoms of amateur predators: emotionally dysregulated, operationally loud, strategically incompetent. They announce themselves. They leave evidence. They give you something to fight against, and because you've learned to recognize them, you believe you're protected. You're not. The truly dangerous don't raise their voice. They don't need to. While you're scanning for red flags, they're already 3 moves ahead, building infrastructure inside your psychological perimeter. They don't attack your boundaries. They become your confidant. They don't isolate you. They make you choose isolation by making everyone else seem inferior. They don't gaslight you into confusion. They give you perfect clarity, then slowly rewrite what clarity means. This is the fatal misdiagnosis. You've been taught to identify overt threat, so you've become blind to covert architecture. The Machiavellian operator doesn't want your fear. Fear makes you defensive. Fear makes you unpredictable. Fear makes you useless. What they want is your trust, your dependency, your voluntary submission, and they will engineer it with the precision of a surgeon, not the chaos of a brawler. Consider the evolutionary logic. In any competitive ecosystem, the loudest predators are the first to be identified and neutralized. They expend energy. They create coalitions against themselves. They die young or die alone. But the ones who survive, the ones who thrive across decades, across networks, across entire institutions, are the ones who learn to operate beneath the threshold of conscious detection. They smile at your promotion while their eyes calculate your vulnerability. They celebrate your success while mentally cataloging how to later use it against you. They mirror your values so perfectly that you mistake them for soulmates, allies, or mentors, when in reality they're studying the blueprints of your identity so they can later occupy it, redirect it, or destroy it. And here's what makes this truly dangerous. The more sophisticated the predator, the more they will make you feel seen. They won't just tolerate your uniqueness, they will worship it, affirm it, weaponize it. You will feel more understood by them in 3 weeks than you've felt by anyone in 3 years. That is not connection. That is reconnaissance. The question is no longer whether you can spot a toxic person. The question is, can you identify someone who has already identified you? There are 3 behavioral signatures that cannot be faked long-term. They exist at the intersection of neuroscience, evolutionary psychology, and operational necessity. Learn them, memorize them, treat them as gospel. Marker 1. Artificial mirroring. Mirroring is a natural human behavior. We unconsciously adopt the posture, speech patterns, and emotional tone of people we feel connected to. It's called limbic resonance. It builds rapport, signals safety, creates the neurological foundation for trust. But there's a difference between organic mirroring and tactical mirroring. Organic mirroring is subtle, inconsistent, and asymmetrical. You mirror someone. They mirror you. It ebbs and flows naturally. Tactical mirroring is too perfect. It's too fast. It's too comprehensive. Within days, sometimes hours, they're using your exact vocabulary. They're adopting your philosophical frameworks. They're reflecting your core identity markers back to you with unsettling precision. Here's the forensic tell. They mirror outcomes, not process. A genuine person will share your journey toward a belief. They'll tell you how they arrived at a similar conclusion through different experiences. The Machiavellian simply adopts the conclusion. No story, no struggle, no origin. They just suddenly believe exactly what you believe, value exactly what you value, hate exactly what you hate. Why? Because they're not building connection, they're building access. Mirroring is the fastest way to bypass your discernment. When someone reflects your identity back to you, your brain interprets them as safe, as aligned, as one of us. You lower your defenses, you share vulnerabilities, you grant proximity, and once they have proximity, they have leverage. Watch for this. Someone who seems to have no philosophical core of their own, but somehow always agrees with yours. Someone who adapts their personality depending on who's in the room. Someone who can shape-shift seamlessly between social contexts without ever seeming inauthentic, because they've mastered the appearance of authenticity itself. Marker 2. Forced, rapid intimacy. Intimacy has a natural pace. Trust is built incrementally, through repeated exposure, through tested reliability, through time. But the Machiavellian doesn't have time. Time allows you to observe inconsistencies. Time allows you to consult your instincts. Time is the enemy of infiltration. So they accelerate. Within the first few conversations, they're sharing deeply personal stories. Childhood trauma, past betrayals, fears they never tell anyone. They're crying in front of you. They're making themselves vulnerable. Not because they trust you, but because vulnerability is a weapon. Here's the mechanism. When someone shares a secret with you, your brain releases oxytocin. You feel bonded. You feel chosen. You feel obligated to reciprocate. And the moment you reciprocate, the moment you share your own vulnerabilities, they have collected intelligence. This isn't intimacy. This is data extraction disguised as connection. The forensic marker is this. They escalate emotional intensity without corresponding behavioral investment. They'll tell you they've never felt this understood, but they won't show up when you need them. They'll call you their closest friend within 2 weeks, but they won't remember details you've shared. They create the sensation of depth without the substance of loyalty. And there's a secondary tell. They often deploy what's called premature disclosure. They share something so raw, so painful, so private that you feel guilty not matching it. You feel like you're holding back. You feel like you're the one being distant. So you open up faster than you normally would, bypassing your own internal vetting process. That guilt wasn't an accident. That was design. Marker 3. Micro-expressions of contempt during your success. This is the most reliable marker because it's involuntary. The predator can control their words, their tone, even their body language, but they cannot fully control their face. Micro-expressions last between 1/25th and 1/5 of a second. They appear before conscious thought intervenes. And contempt, true contempt, has a signature. A unilateral lip curl, usually on one side, often accompanied by a slight narrowing of the eyes. Here's when you'll see it. When you succeed without them, when you get the promotion, when you solve the problem they couldn't, when you receive praise they believe should have been theirs. For a fraction of a second, before the smile, before the congratulations, before the performance of support. There it is. Contempt. Why contempt? Because to the Machiavellian, your success is not a celebration, it's a threat. You are supposed to be a resource, an asset, a subordinate position in their network. The moment you demonstrate autonomy, competence, or value independent of them, you become a liability. That contempt reveals the truth. They never saw you as an equal. You were always a tool, a pawn, a source of supply, and the moment you stopped being useful, or worse, the moment you became competition, the mask slipped. This marker is non-negotiable. If you see it once, it will appear again and again. Because contempt isn't situational. It's structural. It's how they actually perceive you beneath the performance of affection. These 3 markers don't appear in isolation. They form a system. The mirroring grants access. The rapid intimacy extracts data. The contempt reveals motive. Together, they map the infrastructure of predation. Once you see all three in the same person, you're not dealing with someone who is occasionally manipulative. You're dealing with someone who is architecturally dangerous. You need to understand why these predators exist before you can understand why confrontation is suicide. This isn't about morality. This isn't about justice. This is about evolutionary selection and neurological asymmetry. The Machiavellian operator is not an aberration. They are an adaptation. And adaptations persist because they work. In any social species, there are two primary strategies for resource acquisition: cooperation and exploitation. Cooperation builds long-term alliances, but requires energy investment, trust maintenance, and reciprocal obligation. Exploitation extracts resources without investment, but only if the exploitation remains undetected. The evolutionary math is brutal. If you can appear cooperative while operating exploitatively, you gain the benefits of both strategies without paying the cost of either. You receive trust without earning it. You extract value without providing reciprocity. You operate inside coalitions while serving only yourself. This is not sociopathy. This is strategic adaptability. And across human history, the individuals who mastered this duality didn't just survive, they dominated. They became advisors to kings. They built empires. They shaped institutions. Because while everyone else was bound by the social contract, they learned to manipulate the contract itself. The lesson is clear. Overt predators are selected against. Covert predators are selected for. The ones who announce their intentions get exiled, imprisoned, or killed. The ones who disguise their intentions get promoted, celebrated, and protected, because no one realizes they're being exploited until the extraction is complete. Here's what happens when you confront a Machiavellian operator. You're operating from the limbic system, the emotional, reactive, threat detection center of your brain. You've identified danger, your amygdala is firing, your cortisol is spiking, you feel anger, betrayal, moral outrage, you want justice, you want vindication, you want them to admit what they've done. They are operating from the prefrontal cortex, the strategic, calculating, executive function center. They are calm. They are 3 moves ahead. They've already anticipated your confrontation and prepared countermeasures. While you're formulating accusations, they're formulating narratives. While you're gathering evidence, they're pre-positioning allies. While you're preparing to expose them, they're preparing to discredit you. This is the neurological asymmetry. You are emotionally activated. They are strategically detached. You're fighting with your feelings. They're fighting with your reputation. And here's the worst part. The act of confronting them gives them information. It reveals exactly how much you know, what evidence you have, who you've spoken to, and what your strategy is. You think you're delivering a devastating accusation. In reality, you're handing them a threat assessment. You're not equipped for this war. You still believe in fairness. You still think truth matters. You still assume that if you present evidence, people will see reality clearly. These beliefs make you predictable. And predictability is a vulnerability the predator will exploit. They don't believe in fairness. They believe in leverage. They don't care about truth. They care about narrative. They don't respond to evidence. They preempt it. You're playing checkers. They're playing intelligence warfare. And the moment you engage, the moment you attempt to expose them, confront them, or outmaneuver them, you've already lost. There is only one move that preserves your position, your energy, and your future operational capacity. You vanish. Not dramatically, not emotionally, not with explanations, accusations, or final confrontations. You execute a controlled, silent, absolute severance. You become a ghost. And in doing so, you do something the predator cannot predict, cannot counter, and cannot survive. You deny them the completion of their psychological loop. This is not retreat. This is strategic disengagement. This is the Machiavellian counter move that operates at a level above their framework. The moment you've identified all three markers in a single individual, you initiate the protocol. No deliberation. No second-guessing. No, maybe I'm wrong. You've been given intelligence. Now you act on it. First, emotional divestment. You stop investing psychological energy into the relationship. You stop analyzing their behavior. You stop replaying conversations. You stop trying to figure out their motives. All of that is wasted cognitive bandwidth, resources you could be deploying toward fortification, strategy, or new alliances. Understand this. They do not occupy the moral or emotional weight you've assigned them. You've been treating them as a complex human with depth, pain, and internal conflict. They've been treating you as an asset. The asymmetry ends now. You don't need to hate them. Hatred is still attachment. You need to reclassify them. They are no longer a person in your world. They are an environmental hazard you root around. Now you begin the operational withdrawal. This must be executed with surgical precision and zero explanation. No final conversation, no closure, no, I need to talk to you about something. The predator is expecting confrontation. They've prepared for it. They're comfortable with it. They'll use it against you. By refusing to engage, you deny them the script they've already written. Digital severance. Block on all platforms. Phone, social media, email. Do not mute. Muting still allows them to reach you. Do not unfollow. Unfollowing still keeps them in your peripheral awareness. Block completely, immediately. No advance warning. Social severance. If you share mutual friends or professional networks, you do not announce the separation. You do not explain. You do not recruit allies to your side. You simply stop attending events where they'll be present. You stop responding to group messages that include them. You extract yourself from shared ecosystems quietly and incrementally. If directly asked why you've distanced yourself, you deploy the gray rock response. Just been busy. Life's been full. Nothing personal. Vague, boring, offering no emotional foothold. The goal is not to convince anyone of anything. The goal is to provide so little information that there's nothing to work with. Physical severance. If you share a workplace, you minimize overlap. Different projects, different meetings, different lunch hours. If you must interact professionally, you are cordial, transactional, and brief. You offer no personal information. You ask no personal questions. Critical rule: you do not explain the ghost protocol to them. Not now, not ever. Explanation is engagement. Engagement is supply. Supply is exactly what you're withholding. Here's what happens on their end. At first, they won't notice. They're juggling multiple targets, managing multiple extractions. Your absence is just a temporary gap in supply. They assume you're busy. They assume you'll return. Then they notice. They reach out, casual at first. Hey, haven't heard from you in a while. Everything okay? You don't respond, or if you do, it's hours later, vague, offering nothing. They escalate. Now they're concerned. I feel like something's off. Did I do something wrong? Can we talk? You don't respond, or you respond with the same gray rock script. All good, just focused on other things. Now they're confused. The script isn't working. You're not engaging. You're not explaining. You're not giving them the confrontation they can redirect or the closure they can manipulate. And eventually, one of two things happens. They move on. They find a new target. Someone with fresh supply, fresh vulnerabilities, fresh access. You become irrelevant to their operations, or they become obsessed with understanding what happened. Why did you leave? How did you see through them? This obsession consumes energy they could be using for new extractions. Either way, you're no longer in their ecosystem. You're no longer providing supply. You're no longer a resource they can exploit. You have vanished. And in vanishing, you've executed the only move they cannot counter: total withdrawal of access. You now possess intelligence that separates you from the herd. Once you have confirmed all three markers in a single individual, the decision tree collapses to a single branch. You leave. Not in 3 months when it's more convenient. Not after you've tried one more time to see if you were wrong. Immediately. The moment you begin negotiating with yourself about whether the threat is real, you have already compromised your position. You are re-entering the cognitive trap the predator built. This is the test. Can you act on data that contradicts your feelings? The predator has invested weeks, months, sometimes years building an emotional architecture inside you. They've conditioned you to associate their presence with validation, excitement, understanding, or safety. Your nervous system has been trained to crave their attention, and now you're being asked to sever that tether with no closure, no final conversation, no mutual acknowledgement of what happened. This will feel wrong. It will feel cruel. It will feel like you're overreacting. That feeling is not your intuition. That feeling is their conditioning. You do not negotiate with it. You do not accommodate it. You override it with executive decision-making, and you execute the ghost protocol as if your survival depends on it. Because it does. In the weeks and months after you vanish, your brain will attempt to reconstruct the relationship as something it wasn't. You will remember the moments of intensity, the late-night conversations, the times they really understood you. Your memory will selectively retrieve the peaks and erase the valleys. This is not sentimentality. This is neurochemical withdrawal. The predator engineered intermittent reinforcement, unpredictable bursts of attention, validation, and intimacy, followed by withdrawal. This creates the same addictive loop as gambling. Nostalgia is the predator's final trap. It is the mechanism by which people return to abusive relationships, toxic workplaces, and exploitative friendships. It rewrites suffering as complexity and exploitation as depth. You will not fall for it. There will come a moment, weeks, months, sometimes years later, when the predator will re-establish contact. They will have a reason. A plausible, emotionally compelling reason. They need closure. They want to apologize. They've changed. They've been in therapy. They miss you. This is reconnaissance. They are testing whether the ghost protocol has degraded. They are checking whether you've softened, whether your boundaries have weakened, whether nostalgia has eroded your discipline. And if you respond, if you engage at all, even to politely decline, even to set the record straight, you have confirmed that you are still emotionally invested in their perception of you. So here is the mandate. No response, ever. Not a polite decline, not a brief explanation, not even a, "Please don't contact me again." Nothing. Silence is the only language they cannot manipulate. Silence offers no foothold. Silence provides no information. Silence is the fortress they cannot breach. Most people will never learn this. Most people will spend their entire lives cycling through predatory relationships, toxic workplaces, and exploitative friendships without ever understanding the underlying architecture. They will blame themselves. They will assume they're broken. You are no longer one of them. This separates you, and with that separation comes isolation. Because you can no longer participate in the social scripts most people follow. You cannot pretend rapid intimacy is genuine. You cannot ignore contempt to keep the peace. You cannot stay in relationships out of obligation or nostalgia. You will be called cold. You will be called paranoid. You will be called cynical. Let them call you whatever they want. You are not cold. You are calibrated. You are not paranoid. You are threat-aware. You are not cynical. You are evidence-based, and while they are being exploited, conditioned, and cycled through predatory systems, you will be sovereign. If you have identified the 3 markers in someone currently in your life, you have 72 hours. Not 72 hours to figure out what to do. Not 72 hours to gather more evidence. 72 hours to disappear. Block, delete, reroute, vanish. No explanation, no closure, no final conversation. You have the intelligence, you have the mandate, you have the framework. The only question that remains is whether you have the discipline to act on it. Because understanding the trap is not the same as escaping it, and you are not free until you are gone.